Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we're really fancy now.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time.
Grab a cup of joe and let's gather round that hay bale. With your hosts, Anne from Andale Homestead, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch, and Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. Here they are. Hey, y'all, hey.
Hey, everyone, and welcome in. We're so glad you're here. I'm Anne with Andale Homestead.
And I'm Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona.
And I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch.
Hello, everyone. It is Cayce over at Ormsby Farms, and we are really excited about this episode. Today, after talking about canning for the past couple of weeks, we're talking about the preserving wars. How to preserve what? Other options besides the handy-dandy way of canning, pressure canning, water bath canning. We're going to talk about a lot of other options to store your food that you get from your garden and your fruit trees. So I know we always joke. We say we're going to throw it to Sandi first because Sandi has all the knowledge. So that's what I'm going to do because really I'm getting way too much potatoes right now. And I know that's terrible to say that I'm having too many. And Sandi is the best person to reach out to and say, oh gosh, Sandi, help. How do I preserve this? So preserving wars. Sandi, let's talk potatoes first. Let's talk root crops.
Okay. Root crops, if they get too warm, they'll get soft. They'll spoil fast. So what do you do? Now, not everybody has root cellars. Not everybody wants to can, or they can a certain amount and then they still have more. What do? What I found has worked really well, like in a unheated garage, in a basement, take a plastic garbage can. You know, one of those great big garbage cans that a lot of people have. I put some damp straw and I start with my largest potatoes first. And I'll put a layer, not touching. Then I'll put a layer of straw. Then I'll just work my way up, straw, potatoes, and have the very smallest ones on top because you want to use those first because they will get soft first or they'll want to sprout first. And then I put the lid on there. If you're living in the South like Cayce does, you may want to put some insulation around there too, just to keep it a little cooler. Sometimes if the winter is going to be warm, I'll actually put it on some bricks, just so there's a little airflow down below. I don't put any holes in my garbage can because we start using them right away. And I'll just start from the very top and I'll take that layer of potatoes, bring them in the kitchen and use them up. I don't know if that will work for you, Cayce, but it does here.
Yeah, that's I tried one year. I tried the tub method of that same kind of way of the damp wood chips is what this video told me. Wood chips, laying down the potatoes, wood chips, so on and so forth, all the way up. But I got lazy and didn't do it the way I was supposed to do it. So my potatoes sprouted. But that's where I am right now. What you were just saying, I've canned all different ways. Roasted potatoes, herbed potatoes, boiled potatoes that I can turn into smashed potatoes. I've frozen French fries. I mean, I am potatoed out and trying to find that way to keep your area cool because my canning room, which is where I keep most of my potatoes or carrots or squashes, pumpkins, can get up to like 77, 78 degrees. So now my thing is how do I keep this one little room sectioned off with an air vent so that it stays at that 60, 65 degrees year round?
Yeah, some people also will dig holes in their ground and put the garbage can inside there and then layer about 2 feet of straw on top. And then they're just moving the straw because it becomes an insulation for it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because your ground should down, when you dig down, should stay about 54 degrees.
Now, Ann and Monica, y'all are both in the South too. What do y'all do for your potatoes or root vegetables?
Well, for root vegetables, honestly, I'm just learning what to do. Um, what I have done in the past is, I don't know if it was right, but it worked for us. It saved them for several months. Is if I had extra things, I kind of treated them a little bit like tomatoes and wrapped each one in a little bit of newspaper and put it in a cardboard box underneath our bed. So um, that seemed to be one of the coolest spots in our home. We have clay soil, so digging deep enough to put a trash can in there would be difficult. We would need farm equipment. Um, and I was trying to think of some kind of area in the yard, but it's hot here. So, I'm not real sure. I just
Even
I have
really, our winters are hot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have an extra bedroom that I put some things in it. Monica, what do you think about being able to do this? I know it's talking about how to preserve things today, but it's hot where you are too, baby girl.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't really grown potatoes in Texas. So the way I store my potatoes is I buy the 5-pound bag from the grocery store, I throw it in my pantry, and then I typically forget about it until somebody says, "Hey, mom, there's something smelly in the pantry." And then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's a rotten tomato potato." Oh, wow, okay. And then I pull all the potatoes out. I get all the eyes off of them, and then I take the almost rotten potatoes and then I use them really quick. And that's what we have with our dinner that night. So that's pretty much how I preserve potatoes where I live. So it's really not a good answer, actually. So yeah,
Gotcha.
it doesn't make anything good out of me. No,
The
I have,
smell, please.
yeah, I have actually taken potatoes after Casey did a couple videos on canning potatoes. I got a bug and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go can me some potatoes." So I did go out and I bought a bunch of potatoes and I was super excited and I canned a bunch. And I will tell you, they are literally, and I know this is opposite of canning, but they are like the best potatoes to like pull out in a jiff. And I have like little like chunks of potatoes that I can like throw out and season and put in my oven. So I don't really preserve potatoes because they don't last in my house. So it's just too hot. And even in my pantry spaces, because I keep my house pretty warm, things don't really stay. I do have spaghetti squash in there from last year. So I will say
Okay.
that I'm doing pretty good at that. But I've just kept my spaghetti squash in a cool, dark place and they've lasted. And I've had them in there since November and it's
Oh,
July and I'm still having them. I have like 4 of them in there that are still good. So, I mean,
cool.
I can keep the harder stuff, but them root vegetables, no, not for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not for me.
Okay.
Now, what's the best way to store like the so my thought is I have trouble with storing like the regular squashes, like my summer squashes and things like that. Like right now we're in the summer and people are pulling squash and they're pulling things like that.
Zucchini, lots and lots
Yeah,
of
the
zucchini.
zucchinis in the summer. How do you store those? What are the best way? Do I put it in the refrigerator or do I put it on the counter? Because I'll be putting mine on the counter and then it gets all like wrinkly and then I panic and then I want to throw it in the refrigerator. So what's the best way to store those or
What do
preserve
you
them?
think, Sandy?
Anybody have any options?
Well, I store them on a counter. I try not to have them touch each other. They're, when fruit or vegetables touch each other, they will want to decompose faster. So and you just have to know that summer squash is never going to last like a winter squash. And so you just have to go, okay, what am I going to use this for? Like I just picked some zucchinis. And so I have them on the counter. I'm going to make some zucchini bread. And then the other parts I shred up and I put them in freezer bags and I put them in the freezer because all of a sudden you don't just have one zucchini, you have 15 zucchinis and you give them to your friends, but you want to be able to have them in the wintertime. So I just shred them up and that works good for us. And
You shred them and stick them in the freezer?
yeah, in Ziploc bags.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that they get soggy? Do they get soggy when you thaw them out?
See, I never thaw mine out. I do like when I cook my frozen zucchini, I put it like into my air fryer frozen, and it's crazy. They crisp up in the air fryer while they're frozen. Now, if I defrost them, then they're going to be a little sog
Mhm.
and a little wilted.
But you're talking about like chunks though, right, Casey? You're talking about like chunk zucchini or like thick slices.
I've done probably all the different ways because, as Sandy said, you never just get one; you get like 400 at one time. Because when they're ready, they're ready. So I've done chunks, I've done rounds, I've done spears, and I like to flash freeze mine first.
Okay.
Anything that I put in the freezer, I do it on a cookie sheet, not touching, overnight, and I take it out. That way, we don't stick together in the freezer bag. So
Mhm.
then you can reach in and grab just a handful. If it's just, let's just say, Monica, it's just you. Eric has taken the kids and went to the movies. I know, hopeful thinking, right? And all you want is just some, frozen zucchini. You can pull out a
Yeah.
handful, and if you flash freeze before, so that's what I do. But I jumped ahead of Sandy. Sandy, what do you do? So do you defrost yours after to cook, or do you
Well,
cook them frozen?
because I'm usually making zucchini bread. It's just a favorite of at our house, And what Monica's talking about is when it unthaws, there is a lot of liquid in there. And so you have to choose, am I going to pour that liquid off, or in my recipe, does it have liquid and I'm going to use that liquid in the bag instead of the liquid it's calling for?
Oh, I didn't think
But-
about that because
so-
you shred it when you put it away, right?
I do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've done that
don't
before.
peel it.
And when I thaw it out, so I peel it. So you peel yours. I don't always peel mine.
No,
So
I
I've
never
shredded it, right? And I get all those shreds. And then when you thaw it out, it's got all this liquid in it because I'm trying to use it. I'm trying to fold it into my recipe because I'm a banana bread girl too. I mean, a zucchini bread girl too. And then it's like all that liquid. And I never thought I could like use that liquid instead. I don't know why.
Yeah, otherwise just put it in a strainer and drain it.
Okay.
That you're not going to lose your zucchini flavor. It's still going to be there. But like with Cayce, if I want to do the rounds, I just am doing the same thing. I'm going to flash freeze it and then put it in the bags because then we can bread it and fry it up, and we just like it that way.
Oh,
we
yeah,
do.
that sounds good. Fried zucchini, I'm telling you,
Mhm.
doing it from frozen and battering it and I batter mine still frozen. I flour, egg, batter
Yep.
again, all while frozen. Throw it in the air fryer. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the water magically disappears in the air fryer and it crisps up nicely. I don't know, but does anybody dehydrate zucchini and squash? Because I started doing that last year with my yellow squash. And I slice it into rounds, I dehydrate it, and then I make like a squash casserole in a jar with like the cheese powder and all that kind of stuff to vacuum seal. I learned that from our co-host Alicia about meals in a jar because she was obsessed. When I say queen of obsessed meals in a jar, and I
Yeah.
dehydrate my squash. I'll put it in the very bottom, and then I'll add the milk powder, the butter powder, the cheese powder, and literally all you have to do, Anne, is dump that jar after it's vacuum sealed. Dump it in your dish, same amount of water as that jar is. Let it sit for a while, bake. It's easy, quick, dehydrated squash casserole. It is
And
so
you
delicious.
dehydrate your squash. I've never dehydrated squash before.
Oh yeah, I love to do it because again, you get tired of doing squash all the same way because you get a
Yeah.
ton of them, just like zucchini. And I
Right.
have currently, as of this moment, which y'all know we pre-shoot our episodes, but I have about 9-gallon bags full of chopped squash in my freezers, which
Wow.
usually last us the whole winter season
Sure.
for soups and that kind of stuff. And you're like, well, it's still producing. What do I do? So I tried doing chips one time. That was an epic fail. And so I dehydrated it, and I'll tell you, squash bread is not the same as zucchini bread. Don't try it. I did try it. Ain't the same.
You just need to add more sugar and cinnamon, man. And you can make everything better with
That's
vanilla,
true.
sugar, and cinnamon. I'm just
That's
saying.
true.
That's the truth.
Also, didn't you, I think last year, Cayce, you made, was it zucchini or squash chips, salt and vinegar style?
Cucumbers.
Or was it cucumbers?
Yes. And I didn't know that. And Sandy is probably going to look at me like, you didn't know that's crazy. But they get so salty when you dehydrate them. Let me tell you, you could eat my chips and cure any ulcer in your mouth instantly with just 2 chips. So
So,
no
but
need
you,
for a dentist. Come to Casey's house and eat his cucumber chips.
Yeah, we followed
Because
your recipe last year and I did it and I
it
was
was
like, oh, I
salty.
have this trombosino squash because trombosino you can do when it's green as well. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I pulled one off and I was like chopping it all up. That was my chopping sound, by the way. So I chopped it all up and I was so excited. I'm like, Casey made salt and vinegar chips, Eric. I'm gonna dehydrate these things. They're gonna be so good. I soaked them and I put them in my dehydrator and we pulled them out. Eric was like, are you trying to kill me? I think his blood pressure already like went like the levels on the sodium intake.
For real. It
was like,
was crazy.
I might have
And I
to
did it
try.
with my pickles too. Because I asked Sandy, I was like, I have these older pickles, and I put the pickles in the dehydrator. Didn't do anything else to it. Just drained them, put the pickles in the dehydrator. They were super salty too.
Wait, you
I
can
don't know.
dehydrate
Yeah.
old pickles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like sweetened bread and butter chips dehydrated. They're so good,
oh,
but they are.
Oh, that sounds good.
Wait, so like if they're soggy, because like
Yeah.
I'm not going to incriminate myself. I may have a few jars of sweet and sour, sweet, butter, whatever, bread and butter
Bread and butter.
pickles that I may
Bread and
have
butter.
messed up and they still be sitting in their little bitty jars in my pantry because I feel bad throwing them away. So if they're soggy, I can just
ever
put them in the
starved.
dehydrator.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
They
God.
kind of wrinkle up, and I
Uh-huh.
mean, they are salty, but they're so addicting to eat. You just go, oh yeah, I got to eat some more of those.
So, I mean, but how did they get salty? You soak them before, or
they're
like,
already bread and butter pickles, so there is a certain amount of salt,
Yeah.
in there, and cucumbers just seem to taste salty when you
Yeah.
dehydrate them.
That's so strange.
so
Now,
cool.
how long am I dehydrating pickles normally, or cucumbers in general? Like if I'm dehydrating stuff and I want to know, like, what's my test? Because I feel like my house is so humid that I can never get them crisp.
Me too.
I did about 12 hours for my
Mhm.
pickles.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have an old dehydrator. There's no temperature setting. There's an off and there's an on. And so,
So how do we know? Do we just pull it out and kind of snap
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Huh.
And sometimes I
doing
have
that.
to,
I'm doing
because I
that.
have the same thing as you, Miss Ann. I have an older, round Walmart dehydrator that has a flip
Yes.
on and on. Sometimes I have to shift the racks. Like the ones at the very bottom are going to get crispier than the ones all the way at the top. So I just move the racks like I'm playing
Okay.
Jenga or something, like 6
Yeah.
hours in. And then it's good. Monica's coming to visit me. By the time this episode comes out, she will already been here. I have a half gallon full of dehydrated pickle chips. That be prepared because they're
Awesome.
salty. They're salt. I thought about, because I was thinking, as we're talking about preserving, I was like, I'm going to ask Sandy when we're not shooting, but why not? I'm going to ask her on while we're recording too. Okay, with those pickled chips, you could put those dehydrated chips in your little food processor to turn them into like pickle seasoning, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
salty pickle seasoning
definitely.
to
Yeah.
like season chicken with.
Yeah.
Mind blown. Just saying.
Wow.
Let me tell you, because we're talking about preserving, I like the dehydrator. The first year I moved to my homestead, I got real slap happy with my dehydrator. And so I have dehydrated everything in jars that maybe you wouldn't want to dehydrate, but I did. And I'm doing potatoes. I'm shredding potatoes into hash browns, dehydrating it. And, instead of buying the number 10 can, you got your own potatoes, shred them, dehydrate them. Then all you have to do is rehydrate them to make hash browns. And us Southerners, we love us some hash
Oh
browns.
my gosh, y'all! I'm learning so much.
When you
today.
shred those up, you know how you soak them in water usually. If you put some sugar in with that water, when you buy hash browns from the store, they soak them in sugar water. That's why they taste better. And so just soak it in a little sugar water and then strain it, dehydrate it. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount of sugar. It just helps that flavor. And I actually think it helps with the preserving because of the sugar is a preservative.
y'all gonna make me have to go out and buy a bag of potatoes now and waste them
I
again.
know it.
I'm gonna go home and get a bag of potatoes. They're gonna sit in my pantry. I'm gonna have the best intentions. And
No,
then,
Monica, you are
No,
totally
no.
going to preserve this. You're going to do the preserving wars. How to preserve what?
okay,
Potatoes.
okay,
That's right.
so what is your so now I'm not usually the one that does this, but let's go around the room real quick and decide and say what is your favorite thing to dehydrate? So if you could dehydrate one thing, what would your favorite thing to dehydrate, or what would the thing that you would dehydrate for sure? Like that, when you're like, I gotta dehydrate this. What would you do? Cayce, let's start with you.
That's a hard one. And I was thinking as you were round robining us, I have two because I have a salty, sweet, and a savory option. My sweet, because my round dehydrator that I have, you can order these silicone mats on the Amazon, and it has a little bit of a lip. I pour fresh juice that I turn into like a fruit punch in there and dehydrate fruit roll up. So it's kind of like the ones you get in the store, but it's healthier. And then you can roll it up in wax paper or parchment paper, and cut it and store it that way. So, I mean, I personally don't have kids, but when kids come over to my house, like friends' kids, and they are able to grab that out and have a fruit roll up snack. So that's one. And I learned that from a YouTuber. Can't remember which one.
Mm.
But the other one is squash because I love dehydrated squash casserole in a jar. It's a great gift idea over the holidays, to give to your mail lady or to a neighbor or family member. So I would say that. And I'm going to tennis ball it over to Sandi. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you two also. My top favorite thing to dehydrate is mushrooms. Now, you would think, oh, well, she's just going to use them in casseroles and stuff. But there's a chemical reaction when a mushroom gets dehydrated. And you can, so I slice them all up. I can eat them like chips, and they are almost like candy. Same with red cabbage. That would be my other one. I slice it all up, and it does a reaction with the drying, and the red cabbage will taste sweet like candy too.
Wow.
What about you?
I've never even thought about dehydrating red cabbage. I can promise you that. But it sounds awesome. As well as mushrooms. Now, I did dehydrate mushrooms one time, but they turned out to be like little rocks. So I don't know if that, like, I think I've fried them really bad. But my favorite thing, I'm going to kind of throw it out of the box, is actually fruit, lemons and oranges. Because I not only use them in teas all winter, and during the winter time when it's cold, I drink a lot of hot tea, especially in the evenings, and it's very soothing to me. But I can also use them for cleaners. I have, pulled them out and stuck them in a jar and added some white vinegar, let them soak in there, and then I've got cleaner. So I have enjoyed both of those a lot. And trying to herbs are my second one. My dill, mint, just any kind of herbs that you pick out of I try to preserve them as far as spices to be able to use. I reuse our old spice jars and put masking tape around it and rename it. And so I've got fresh herbs from the garden that are dehydrated, but they were ours. So those are my favorites. And Monica, how about you?
Okay, so I'm a little different, I guess. So I have in the past tried, and I've not quite gotten the hang of it, but I am currently working on dehydrating eggs, which is probably a no-no, but I'm trying. And so anyway, that's one I'm still working on trying. And so it's like my favorite thing to try. I've never actually successfully done it, but I've seen YouTubers do it, so I'm still trying. But my absolute favorite thing to dehydrate, and this sounds so weird, and I'm definitely a kid person, is marshmallows, little tiny marshmallows. I love to dehydrate the little mini marshmallows because if I buy mini marshmallows, when I'm buying for my people, I don't just buy one bag of something. I usually buy like 3 or 4. And then we'll use up a bag or 2. And then I've got like a couple extra bags in my pantry. And again, my house is humid. The pantry feels humid sometimes. And so those marshmallows will stick together in a big ball. So I basically just dump them out onto my bunch of dehydrating trays, and we dehydrate little mini marshmallows, and they are crispy and crunchy. And we put them in a vacuum seal half-gallon jar or a gallon mason jar, and my kids will snack on them like crazy. And it's a really good snack. Plus, you can put them in your hot cocoa later if you really want. But my kids
like Lucky Charms, like Lucky Charms.
yeah, but they're kind of different because you can buy those like Lucky Charm marshmallows, and they're definitely different. Those are like freeze dried, I think.
Oh,
But the ones you like when you get a mini marshmallow, just like a little mini marshmallows from the store, and you dehydrate them, they fluff up and they turn crispy, like a crisp. So yeah, it's really different. My kids really enjoy it, so they just reach their hand in the jar like Cayce with his pickles, and they like
I'm
the
gonna have to try
marshmallows.
that.
But
Gosh.
there's so many things you can dehydrate, and I never realized how many things you can really dehydrate. So dehydrating is a really great way to preserve your food, even if it's store-bought food. Because I think that's something we forget about too, is that, I'm not growing lemon trees, but dehydrating lemons and preserving them for the winter for when I might need them is a great way to do it. So if you're not growing your own, like me this year with my garden, I'm going to go out and buy some things and dehydrate them, because I feel like dehydrating, like Cayce mentioned, the pickles, you can dehydrate tomatoes. Go to your farmer's market, grab some tomatoes, dehydrate those tomatoes, and then you can make like paste out of it, right? I mean, you can dehydrate the tomatoes, grind it up, make yourself a little tomato powder. I've done that before in the past, and that's a great way to preserve food that even if you didn't grow it, you can have it for all year.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, if you dehydrate a whole bunch of different vegetables, and then you grind them up, mix them all together, you can make vegetable soup. Then you can add it to casseroles, you can add it to your omelets, you can add it, and it's got all these flavors of the different vegetables that you threw in there. And everybody, when they have a garden, they have extra produce.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with the extra produce?
Right.
Okay, so how about I have a question, because I'm thinking of all the things that I have extra. I have lots of tomatoes that are extra. I'm going to have beets, a lot of beets, and that I'm going to have to figure out what to do with these beets. I know you can pickle them, and we prefer fresh beets. I just go out there and pick enough to be able to fill a pan for Worth and I, and then I let the ground preserve the rest of them for a little while. But what would I do? How would I preserve beets?
Well, you could dehydrate them. You could, you're going to have to dip them first in the hot boiling water and put in cold water so the peels come off, the outside comes off. Then just slice.
That's so cool. I never knew you could do that. I'm sitting there peeling all these beets.
No, just get some water boiling, throw the beets in. I usually have probably a half an inch of the tops left on so they don't bleed so much. And then I let them boil for a little bit, put them into the water bath, the cold, icy water bath, and the skin will literally just peel off.
That's so cool.
And so then you just slice them thin, and you can dehydrate them and just leave them just like that. You can grind some of them up so it has a powder. Beet powder is so good for you to add, even in smoothies.
And just so you know, Miss Ann, beetroot powder, people pay top dollar for this on like Amazon and all these.
Right.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, oh my word, you have beets? Make yourself a
And
bunch.
beet chips.
Yeah, people
chips.
pay
Those are
top
good.
dollar. They're paying like $2 to $3 an ounce for organic beet powder on Amazon.
Well, this would be organic.
There you go. So yeah, beet powder seems like such a great, it's a superfood, right? I believe it's like one of those superfoods that people put in things. So you need to ground up some beet powder and be adding it to everything.
Yeah, or just chop it into little cubes. You could freeze those so that you could have it. You could can it like that. You don't have to pickle them if you don't like pickled beets. You can just can them in the pieces too.
Okay.
I have to say, I've never had beets fresh. I probably need to try, because a lot of us, were sent the beet seeds from the wonderful Survival Seed 2024 collaboration. And I have not tried them yet because I'm nervous, because I don't know if I'm going to like them. I tried pickled beets and I was not a fan.
Well, beets are one of those things that you will either love or you'll hate. Now, Joe
Okay.
hates them.
Okay.
My husband Joe hates them unless they're pickled. He thinks they taste like dirt otherwise.
Oh.
There's
So-
a lot of people that do. I mean, I boil them like potatoes, Casey, add some butter and a little bit of sugar. And man, they're so
Butter and sugar. You just sold me all the way.
baby.
Well, y'all, this has been such a wonderful episode talking about the preserving wars and how to preserve. We touched just a little bit on certain things, and I'm so excited because if you come and join us next week, we're going to be talking about what we grew and how to preserve that even more. So, y'all, thank you for tuning into this episode. Make sure you join us on Friday for our live radio show where we will be discussing more about dehydrating, canning, freezing. We may even talk about freeze drying if Harvest Right would send all 4 of us a freeze dryer. We say it every season. I mean, I know y'all are tired of hearing us say it, but come on. But y'all be sure to like and subscribe, and go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because once we hit 500, we have a wonderful giveaway. So y'all, we will see you on next week's episode. Until then, bye y'all, bye.
Are you enjoying the Hay Bale topics? To learn more, click on the LinkTree link to get all of our product recommendations along with discount codes and more.